Hi, and welcome to How Humans Heal. I'm Dr. Doni Wilson, and in this episode, we're going to be talking about anxiety and the mental health epidemic, as well as how we can redefine anxiety and really start to look at it in a different way. I have Dr. Traci Potterf here with me today. Has a PhD in medical anthropology and is a functional practitioner helping people as an anxiety detective. Thank you so much for joining me today, Traci.
Hey, Dr. Doni. I'm so excited to talk about anxiety. I think it's a fun topic.
I know it's something to say that, right? And I thank you for joining me. We see your background there in Hawaii, which is beautiful. What an amazing
Yes.
place to help counteract anxiety and all of our stress in general. Now let's talk through a little bit. Like, I know that this is something that you've specialized in and experienced yourself. Maybe you can just tell us, like, what made you interested in helping with anxiety and becoming this detective, helping people to redefine and become free of anxiety?
Yes. So it's kind of interesting because my dad was actually a psychiatrist. And so one thing I share a lot is that, I was taught that anxiety is a genetic chemical imbalance. And you just, because it's kind of feels like you're genetically defective and you just have to be on these medications the rest of your life. Like those will fix it, right? And maybe there was like talk therapy back then, but there wasn't this knowledge of somatics and somatic healing and all that, and all EMDR and all that wasn't really like something I was aware of. So I just thought if you had anxiety, that meant something was wrong with you and that there was no solution. So when I was 19, I had my first panic attack. And, my dad offered me meds and something in my soul couldn't do it, Donnie. Like I just could not, like, it was like this path. I don't know if it was pride or intuition. I don't know what it was, but I was like, I don't want this life sentence. And I was like, I'm not going to live like this. Like I refuse to live like this. And I've got to figure something out. And for me, it was a really long, arduous, nonlinear path full of lots of suffering. And I eventually was able to figure it out. And anxiety is some of the worst pain I've ever had. I've had physical injuries of all kinds. Anxiety is physical, by the way. Your mind and body aren't separate. I know probably most of you wouldn't be listening if they didn't already have a sense of this. But yeah, it took me a long time to figure out. And I thought, I don't want other people to have to go through what I went through. It was so painful. Like anxiety was more painful than pretty much any other thing I've had to do in my health. The level of suffering was so high. And I don't want people to suffer, and I don't want people to feel like they're defective and it's just some genetic thing. So even if anxiety so-called runs in your family, whatever that means, there are some genes that can, with detox issues or vitamin D receptor issues, susceptibility, toxicity. So there are some genes that can predispose you to struggle with anxiety, but you can work around those things with a lot of functional medicine tools and lifestyle and nervous system rewiring. So a lot of people think, oh, it runs in my family. People in my family have mental health, and so it must be genetic. Well, also ideas and beliefs run in families, eating habits run in families, trauma runs in families, and pretty much there's almost no family that doesn't have mental health issues. So that it's just so ubiquitous, right? And then the second thing is that people are like, well, I've had it my whole life. And so like, it must be something I was born with. And so even if you've had it, was triggered gestationally or from the time you're an infant, it still doesn't mean you can't fix it. It still doesn't mean you can't stop it. So I want to just demolish all these. If you understand what anxiety really is and you understand what works to stop it, then you can stop believing you're trapped with this forever.
Oh my gosh, I'm so glad you're saying this and sharing your story and your wisdom because it's true. First of all, there's such an epidemic of stress and anxiety and mental health issues in general in the United States, but also many other areas of the world. And I think a lot of it is because there is such a stigma about having mental health issues because we kind of think, oh, I'm afraid to tell someone else because they may reject me or think something negative about me. And so we end up not accessing help. And then it just perpetuates the situation of anxiety. Tell us more your perspective on the stigmatization of anxiety and mental health issues.
Right. Yeah. It's like, I don't want people to think I'm crazy. I don't want to lose credibility. I don't want people to think I don't have it together. Well, guess what? Like, no one really has it. Some people have it together more than others, but everyone's struggling with something. And, I had this epiphany when I was in grad school. I was doing a joint program with UCSF Medical School and UC Berkeley Department of Anthropology. It was a medical anthropology program. And one of the things I was fascinated with was how Indigenous people and people living a more traditional lifestyle, when they start being either exposed to a lot of toxins through industry or starting to change their lifestyle and live and eat and think like, industrialized cultures, they started getting the same mental and physical illnesses, something I share about a lot. And I realized that this isn't a genetic problem. This is a cultural problem because we have a toxic we've normalized this toxic culture that's trying to override nature. So we've made all these changes. And a lot of them are amazing. Like, I like to really celebrate that, we're on different parts of the planet and we can be having this conversation and sharing it with people. I mean, there's so many amazing things that have come of technology, but we've really devastated our food. We've messed up our sleep. We're like, we've made just moving and playing in our bodies become this like punishment. Like, I have to exercise to burn calories because I hate my body. We're losing mobility in our hips. We're not squatting anymore. We're drinking water that's missing all kinds of things that we would be getting if we were drinking from a spring. We're sterilizing our microbiomes. We don't have the microbial diversity that gives us resilience. That's a big thing. And our nervous systems are shot. And when you have a messed up microbiome and a dysregulated nervous system, poor nutrition, lots of stress, and you put that all together, your poor, sweet, brilliant, genius body is still going to fall apart and struggle. And not because you're defective, but because we are out of touch with the magic and the beauty of what we truly are, which is we are nature. Nature isn't out there. It's not outside my window. It's what we are. And until we start living as extensions of nature, and that's why I branded as inner genius health, because you have the genius of nature, the intelligence of nature in every human cell, in every microbe cell, and in your DNA. And when we expand our wisdom to look at the big, big picture of nature, then we start to see connections that I saw. One of the things that I think we romanticize about a lot of Indigenous communities is their ability to see how things are. And a lot of like Western science is like, we're dissecting things into smaller and smaller bits, which is really fascinating. And I love it. I think there's nothing wrong with that, but we're losing those connections and we're not seeing. And like, I think when you work in functional health or you're a naturopath or, you see things, you see connections that your average person doesn't see. And that's why you become a detective, because you can help people make connections they wouldn't otherwise make trying to like Dr. Google it themselves.
And so true. I love being able to be that big picture and look for the patterns and look for the interconnections and then help solve from that perspective. I see we can solve so much more in terms of health issues when we look at it from that big picture and connectivity than if we're looking from the microscopic view. And I love that
we have to go from the micro to the macro. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that what you're saying is essentially, I hear you saying that anxiety is really a symptom of the distress, the disconnection.
Yeah, it's nature's smoke alarm. It's nature's wake-up call. And so are all our symptoms. And I like to say that anxiety is how the brain says ouch, but so is depression, so is brain fog, so is fatigue. That's how your brain says ouch. And we can't talk about your mind and body as separate. We don't even have the language to talk about what we are. Like, we're more microbial than human. We're energy, we're frequency, we're all this amazingness. And we have so much power to shape our biology, to shape our reality, to like connect to something beyond ourselves. And, and there's more and more science bridging, like science and spirituality, bridging mind and body, bridging all these disconnects. It's starting to like reconnect. So we like broke it down and dissected everything into tiny little parts. And now we're like, okay, how do we put it back together? I always think of a kid who wants to know how the radio works and so dismantles it into a million parts and then doesn't know how to put it back together. And we need to learn how to put it back together. And I love when we have an open enough mind that we can look at quantum science, we can look at microbiome medicine, we can look at epigenetics, we can look at all these different realms. And how can we apply this cutting edge science that hasn't made its way into standards of practice in our medical system? We can do it now. Like, that's what I love about functional medicine, is because we're like at the forefront of taking cutting edge science and putting it into concrete steps that people can use in their daily lives now. And we don't have to wait for medical politics to catch up. We have to practice ethically. We have to practice legally, but there's so much we can do legally and ethically within our scopes of practice, that can really be a game changer. And people need to stop putting medical hexes on themselves. My mom had Crohn's disease, and she was told she was going to have a colectomy, have her colon taken out with a colostomy bag put in permanently, and that she couldn't keep her colon, and that, she had to be on immunosuppressant drugs the rest of her life. And that's what turned me in the direction of functional medicine. At the time, I didn't even know what it was. I just knew I wanted my mom to keep her colon. And I was studying medical anthropology. And I was studying a lot about the politics of science and medicine, and how financial motivation drives so much decision making that throws human welfare under the bus, that throws the planet under the bus, that throws workers in industry under the bus. And this isn't something happening at the level of doctors, at the level of practitioners or nurses, or these people that are trying to make it happen. This is happening at a very executive level, where people are so detached from the impact of their decisions that it's they don't have to take accountability for how it's hurting people. And I just learned how many studies aren't truly scientific because they're designed to yield very specific outcomes that support the financial interests of the people funding the research, right? So that's something really beneficial that I carry with me from medical anthropology, both the multicultural perspective, the cultural perspective of how we create a reality through culture, and how we can change culture through change perception of reality and change behavior, but also really being tuned into the politics of all this, and to figure out how can we be creative and navigate and sidestep all this, where we're not at war with the machine, but we find paths forward. We look for openings forward that are allowing people to heal. And I know your clients, my clients, in our community, there's so many people who are going into remission from things that they've been told are incurable. My mom still has her colon. It's been since 2004. She's been quiescent from Crohn's disease, off medications, no immunosuppressant drugs this whole time. She's never had a relapse because she fundamentally changed her biology. She changed her diet. She changed her thinking. She made a lot of changes, and it took her some time. But she's 83 now, and she still has her colon, and she doesn't have active Crohn's. So that's just one example, but I see it all the time in my practice. I know you do too.
Yeah, it's a beautiful example. And I love that you mentioned, that our mind and body is all separate, because in the standard medical system, what people experience is that if you have anxiety or a symptom that we consider from the nervous system or from the mind, you end up going to see a specialist that specializes in the mind. And then that specialist isn't going to pay attention to the rest of your body, where that's not really how our bodies function. And so anyone listening to just realize, just because the medical system has it separated out, as you talked about, like taking the radio apart and sending you in different directions, that doesn't mean that it's separate in your body and your mind, And
Right.
I write about this in my book, that the mind and body I can't even imagine separating them. So I talk about them as one, because they really are one,
Right.
completely in communication.
We need a word. I've been saying this, people talk about the word Gaia for the kind of the whole aliveness of the earth. We need a word like Gaia for the mind and body connection. I've even tried to look in different languages and whatever. And we need a word for that, because our language shapes our perception of reality. And so we talk about things in ways that don't really accurately reflect how they are. And people ask me, is this mental or physical? And I'm like, yes.
Oh,
Yeah.
oh, this reminds me. But people think of I even want to break down this term anxiety, because I think when I'm talking to people, a lot of
Right.
times people don't realize that they are stressed, or the stress is affecting them. And they may not realize that they're experiencing anxiety, because they might not be calling it for themselves, or in families, they might not use the word anxiety. So what are some of the common ways that you hear people describing their experience of anxiety, but without using the word anxiety?
Okay. So I want to zoom back a little bit and then
Yes.
into targeting that question. So first I want to say, I want people to think of a spectrum from there's this stress to panic attacks, spectrum. So there's stress, bodily tension, all the way up to full on panic. And it's a whole spectrum.
Mhm.
And everybody is somewhere dealing with it, because there's no way to live in the modern world. Maybe there are people who have created circumstances they are, but I would say the majority of humans these days, especially in our shared culture, are somewhere on that spectrum of dealing with tension in their body. And so a lot of it's to do with safety. And if your if your nervous system feels safe, see, I was having a little slip there, because your nervous system and immune system operate in lockstep with you. They're not separate systems. They're physiologically linked. They're not separate. We just talk about them like they're separate. And so frustrating to try to communicate about it because it's like we don't have the words. But anyway, it has to do with your nervous system, whether it feels safe or not. And so like when you can start out feeling tension in your muscles, jaw tension, teeth grinding, jaw clenching, feeling tight in your chest, feeling tight in your solar plexus, like your tummy, feeling like kind of swirly in your tummy, feeling like constipated or having loose stools, gas, bloating, things like that. And like feeling nervous, feeling jittery. Maybe like also like your eyes are really dry or there's tension in your eyes, getting headaches. I mean, it just goes on and on and on. Different kinds of cravings, like sugar cravings, that you wouldn't think of as connected, but that are your nervous system trying to self-soothe. Having one of the things that I think we need to reconsider is that our go-to self-soothing usually involves something destructive or addictive, when there are plenty of ways to soothe ourselves that are nurturing and that don't destroy us. Like on TV, it's always like, I need a drink, and it's just like, I actually think it's best to only consume alcohol if you're super healthy, you have a super regulated nervous system, you have no depression, no anxiety, you're in a really good place, and you want to enjoy a sip of some good wine. But if you're in healing mode, you might want to reconsider. This causes inflammation. It's a depressant. It damages your liver, and your liver plays an important role in your hormones and your emotions and things like that. It's not just a Chinese medicine metaphor. It's like real biology. So anyway, back to what you were saying. So I want people to understand there's this whole spectrum of from safe to unsafe in our body. And so at some point there's the tension, the muscle tension, and then it builds and builds. And then like negative thoughts, feeling helpless, feeling hopeless, running scenarios in your head that what if this, what if that, what if this doesn't happen? What if this does happen? Worst case scenarios, doom and gloom. I mean, it just goes on and on. So it's like negative thoughts and emotions, self-criticism, not feeling enough, feeling like it's never enough. It's not good enough. I'm not safe. Something's wrong. All that stuff. This is all on the spectrum of anxiety. Okay. And so now when it gets to the point that your heart is racing really fast, your stomach's in knots, you can't, like, you're seeing the world very negative lens. You don't feel safe physically or emotionally. You're like kind of curling in protective body language, that kind of thing, then that's going to be further down the spectrum. But if you wait till it gets that bad, you just have more to disentangle. You can disentangle from any level of anxiety, but why wait till it's that bad, right? And, and then there's a full-on panic attack. And some people don't even realize because they're not having, some people have very thought-dominated anxiety, and some people it's more of a physiological sensation. You're not even worried about anything or thinking about anything. And often this is being run by some kind of biological problem. So I've been through Lyme, I've been through toxic mold, and I've been through lead poisoning. And I had the mold and lead poisoning at the same time. And I had a perfect lifestyle. I was meditating 2 hours a day, Dr. Doni. And I was eating a perfect diet, really good sleep hygiene, getting plenty of sleep. I was doing all the right things, exercising. I was in such good shape. I was doing all the right things. But because I lived in a home, I jokingly call it the murder house now, because like literally it almost killed me. But because I was in an environment where I was being poisoned by my environment, anxiety was a smoke alarm trying to get my attention. So sometimes people have thyroid antibodies, they're making autoantibodies against their brain because of thyroid autoimmunity that has not been diagnosed, because they went to their doctor, they ran a TSH, said it was normal, and then scooted them off, right? They're not checking antibodies. So, autoimmunity can cause it. So many different things happen in your body, parasites, infections, anything that causes inflammation in the gut and it causes inflammation in the brain, any kind of neurotoxin. Sugar is a neurotoxin, like processed sugar. Caffeine is a neurotoxin. MSG is a neurotoxin. Additives, preservatives, pesticides, fertilizer. I'm all sped up now. There's such a long list of things, right? Because we're in this society where we're poisoning ourselves. We think it's normal. And then we're telling people if they get sick, there's something wrong with you. And so I want you to know that, that anxiety is trying to get your attention. It's a smoke alarm. And when I was that sick, when I was being poisoned by my environment, the first symptom was anxiety. That was the first symptom. Eventually, I started having neurological symptoms that were more pronounced. I developed a tremor, tinnitus, started having kidney failure, heart palpitations, chest pains, gastrointestinal reproductive issues. It went on and on and on. My first symptom was anxiety.
Are you ready to discover your unique stress type? We're all affected by stress, but why fight it when you can master it? Take my free online stress type quiz today and conquer your burnout. We'll measure your energy, sleep, mood, focus, and body to determine how your body is built to deal with stress. Then we'll work together to take precise action to help you get out of stress mode and become resilient to it. It's time to master your health. Let's go. It's such a good point. I mean, when I see patients with mold toxicity, it's anxiety is one of the most common symptoms along with brain fog, and a lot of times it gets missed. And so I'm glad that you're mentioning that, anxiety is something where we need to dig deeper. We need to go, hey,
Right.
what's really going on here, right? We don't just need to stop and say, oh, let's give a medication that masks the symptoms. Or as you mentioned,
Right.
so often we go to something to numb the experience, but is actually probably addictive and more damaging to our system. So if we go to drinking more alcohol or some other substance or some other activity or eating or not eating or things we do to try to help with it, but it's not really getting at because first I think we have to have that compassion for ourselves and say, oh, okay, I'm a human. I'm in this human experience. I'm having my body's giving me these signals that something's going on. I need to figure out what my body needs in order to heal. And that's not a thought process
Right.
that we're taught to have. And I love the way you're describing it. So if people listening are thinking, oh, wow, yeah, I am getting some smoke signals from my body that I'm being affected by stress, and it might be psycho-emotional stress, or it might be toxins as a stress, as you mentioned, or other infections that are a stress that start triggering all of this. And then, of course, we can dig in. Like that's where, we can do some other investigating and testing and say, hey, is there, right, an imbalance in the biome? Is there imbalance in hormones? Is there antibodies occurring, right? We can dig in and say, what's underlying this symptom?
Right. Right. And that's the medical system is not taught to do that. And here's a metaphor I use and abuse. If you hear me talk, you're going to hear me say it, but I can't say it enough. Is that anxiety is like a smoke alarm. And if you just take the battery out of the smoke alarm and your house is on fire, your house is going to burn down. Like just numbing the symptoms it's when your body's saying something's wrong and you say, shut up, little dummy. I don't want to listen to you. Stop telling me something's wrong. I just want to go on doing things the way I've always done them. Then, you're going to get sicker and sicker.
And I think
so. Like we can't ignore that.
Our medical system kind of like promotes that even. So you have to get to a point where you're already hopefully watching this video and saying, hey, I want another solution. I want another path, not just
right. Right. And sometimes people are scared to find out because they imagine it's so impossible. And the thing I've had so many mentors that have been such a gift. One in particular who really was an expert in mast cell and toxic mold and heavy metals and like environmental toxicity and all the kind of the strange, hard, mystery illnesses that really aren't taught in medical school. Like I was trained by this person in this. And then so when I went through it, I had that background, and then I was able to also reach out to, other people for support. Because number one, if you're really sick, if you're having anxiety and you're trying to just Dr. Google it, like your chances, if you're not a health professional, like your chances of like figuring it all out by yourself, you're just going to torture yourself, and the thing is like a lot of people don't, and I did this, I want to share this, like I did this. So even though this was years back, I was, I knew toxic mold. I dealt with other people having toxic mold, and I was still in the process of getting my good tools, and I just didn't want to have it. So I didn't test for it. And the thing is,
we kind of go into denial, right?
Long story short. Yeah. And also when I had Lyme, like I didn't want to know I had that either. I didn't want to have it. So if you just don't test for it, then you don't have it, right? And so anyway, but what I want to say is if I added up the money that like I probably at points in my life, I probably to try to save $5,000 to $10,000, I've probably cost myself multiple six figures.
I know.
And
that's
a hard.
We kind of like, it's a hard lesson, right? Where we're like, oh my gosh, I've just been avoiding it. And then it just ends up lasting longer and costing more than if we just go head on and say, hey, let me figure out what's really going on. And the difference is that in functional medicine, we can actually do tests that give us information that we can do something about. I always like to say that, right? Like,
Right.
there's a
And here's
distinction.
Yeah, and here's the thing, there are solutions. And the issue is, I mean, not everybody who says it does, like, not everybody's good at their job, no matter what the profession. You have to find the right fit for you. But there are solutions to all of this. Like everything, none of it's a death sentence. It's actually like when you figure it out, that's when you get your life back. And so why not do it now? Why not get help from an expert? Like, would you go to some part of the planet in a forest you've never been in before and just try to bushwhack your way through the Amazon jungle with no guide? I mean, why would you do that to yourself? you know? And so it's just like, it's interesting how many people just avoid. And when you avoid, it just gets worse and worse and worse. And I see this a lot with anxiety. I work with a lot of I work with men and women, but it tends to be professional women will come to me more. Um, and it's just they put themselves off for so long, and then you get to perimenopause, menopause, whatever, and then you fall apart, right? And then men tend to have the same thing, but just a little bit later. They hold it together. They don't go through that. They go through andropause, menopause, but it's a little different. But I think waiting until like you're falling apart is not ideal. If you're already falling apart, what are you waiting for? Like there's help, So I want people to understand people will go on these forums for like mold or Lyme with all these people who haven't found solutions, who are miserable and angry and totally dysregulated. And it creates this contagion of angst. I tried going on some of these forums just to offer support. I wasn't even trying to get clients or anything. I just wanted to offer support. And people were so angry when I tried to give them suggestions that there might be hope. They were so angry. Well, I've had this for, and I've just had to accept it's never going to get better. And they were just angry. And I was like, wow, like that's not the vibe I want. And one of the reasons I chose anxiety is because anxiety is an early symptom. A lot of people don't know what's causing it. And so some people will come to me who know they have Lyme or know they have mold and who've been in a tingle and they've heard I can help from people I've helped. But a lot of times people don't know what they have. And sometimes when they don't know, there's actually more of a quality of openness and innocence. So they don't get like really bogged down by all the hopelessness. And, and a lot of times just because other people haven't solved a problem you have doesn't mean there isn't a solution to the problem. It just means they were just going about it a way that wasn't working. Right. And so I want people to understand that you've never tried everything. We live in an infinite universe of infinite possibility. How could anyone have ever tried everything? That's impossible. It's like it violates the laws of physics to ever claim we've tried everything. And I know what people mean. They mean I've tried everything that I've read about or that experts have advised me on that I know of. But it doesn't mean you've tried everything. And I've never had a client not get like really seriously good results when they have to do their part, right? But when they do their part, they always get better, right? And some people it's like I like to make a metaphor of puzzles. Like some people's health puzzle is like, the toddler puzzles with the little knobs, and there's like only six of them, six pieces, and they put it in the fire truck and and no time it's always like there are clients like it's just fixed quick and easy, really obvious stuff. And then there are clients that are more like a 2,000 piece jigsaw puzzle, But if you take it one piece at a time and you're patient and you go through it, you like in a reasonable amount of time, considering how long you've been sick, you can still be resolved. So it's just it requires patience and understanding it's not linear. It's not like I'm just going to get better and better until I'm all cured like really fast. Like it's going to be nonlinear. You're going to get better. You're going to have backslides. You're going to have tingles. You're going to hit roadblocks. It's life, right? So we heal at the speed of life, not at the speed of Amazon.com delivery, So
I love
I
that.
want people to understand, don't give up. Like get good guides, get a team, invest in yourself. Even if you have to do a GoFundMe or whatever the thing is, not a financial advisor, but like the people I've seen invest in their health get better so much faster. And then they can go on and move on with their life. And they actually will often make like career changes or whatever, where they end up making more money. And it's interesting because a lot of people who are really sick or have a lot of anxiety aren't able to make money because their mental health struggles and their physical health struggles are getting in the way of them being able to make money. And then when people actually invest in their health, figure out a way, get support somehow and heal, then like suddenly things start changing in your brain, your consciousness, all of your sense of possibility changes. And then like you actually can make a lot more money after you healed than you were making when you were sick. And I think that may seem like not relevant, but it's so relevant.
No, and thank you. You're covering such good points, and I think a lot of the things that when someone has anxiety, these are the things that might stop them from take getting help and taking steps to change it. Because anxiety kind of works that way. It kind of keeps on jumping in and trying to distract you from where you're trying to go. And so, being able again to have that big picture view, understand how anxiety shows up, and to understand that it is possible to find guides to help you along the way. And I love your point that it's becomes a mindset that life is our healing journey. Life is uh, our chance to figure out how to give ourselves the support to recover from stress while stressed. It's not about, oh, I'm gonna
Yes.
never be stressed and never be anxious. No, it's we're gonna have stress. We just want to be able to choose our stress intentionally and also support ourselves through it.
I love that you just said that. That was so well said. And like, it's not like I'm like telling people you're going to never have anxiety again, because anxiety is a normal human emotion. It's just when the on switch gets turned on and you lose the off switch, that it becomes a debilitating problem. But yeah, so anxiety is always going to be an occasional emotion, but it doesn't have to be this debilitating disorder that we're told it is. And yeah, I loved everything you just said. That was awesome.
So tell us a little more, Tracy, like when you work with people, I know right now you're working with people more one on one. What does that look like? How does that, like, if they're like, I'm thinking about this, what does that look like when you start to work with them? What kind of things do you find help? And I'm sure it's different for each person that you work with. That's the thing is anxiety is not one size fits all, right? So it's important to individualize, but just give us a little sense so they can, and of course I'll be sharing where they can find you and learn more and, and learn more from you.
Thank you. So yeah, so anxiety, I have 3 pillars, and this is a proven process I've done over and over again. I've been doing this almost 2 decades, and this is what I've found work. And here's what's interesting is a lot of the way I got into this also was that I would notice when I would work with people with their gut issues or their Lyme or their mold or whatever, weight loss issues, like whatever the thing was, their anxiety would go away and their depression would go away. And so I was just like, and that's part of how I realized that like this works, this whole system works. And so here's what I figured out is that there are 3 areas you have to address. It's like a combination lock. You have to get the right numbers in the right order or it won't unlock. You'll be stuck. And these 3 areas, if you do 2 out of 3, it won't work. You have to do 3 out of 3. Okay. Okay. So one of them is like going to be obvious where you talked about it. It's like the functional health anxiety detective work. So it's going to be the labs, the fact finding, and then of course working with supplements, things like that. So that will really accelerate progress. But if all you do is supplements and you don't address your lifestyle, your lifestyle isn't just diet and exercise. Those 2 words that have become so injurious that I just like to say, your self-nurture, like the way you nurture yourself. So the way you feed yourself, the way you enjoy foods that serve you, the way you nurture yourself through your sleep habits and your ability to regulate. A lot of my clients have terrible insomnia, and insomnia feeds anxiety, and anxiety feeds insomnia. So I'm also a sleep detective. Like I'm really good at helping people sleep who haven't been able to sleep. And so like sleep's a huge issue, and movement and play and joy, those are huge. And I don't say exercise so much, I say movement, because we have these bodies that move in all these like really amazing ways. I mean, look at a dancer, look at a gymnast, look at any athlete. Our bodies are designed to move and to play. We're designed for joy. We're wired for pleasure. So I teach hedonism, which is using like pleasures that are nurturing, that make you healthy, is part of your healing journey. Because when you're joyful and you're lifted and you're playful and you weave that into your life, then it changes your biology very quickly. Like anything we do during play will wire into our nervous system like many times faster than something we do that's not playful or joyful. And then that way,
That research recently too is so
yeah,
interesting, right?
right. And you don't need it, and you don't need willpower when you're in love with your life. So this is what I teach you to do: is craft a life, create a life that's for you, that's your ideal life, that you're going to sculpt into something joyful and beautiful that you're so in love with. You don't need willpower to stick with it, right? And I call that healthy hedonism, right? So we're pursuing pleasure in a way that serves us instead of pleasures that destroy us, right? So that's pillar 2. I call it a lifestyle makeover for short, because, we love makeovers. They're fun. And so, and then the third pillar is rewiring your nervous system. So it's like really mastering your stress response, because like you just said, stress isn't going to go away, but you can change your relationship to it. So you can build resilience through a lot of nervous system work that I teach people that are also, it just so happens that a lot of these things give you pleasure. They create sensations of euphoria. They relax you. They make you feel good. So then you want to do them because they give you pleasure, and it's so much better than just like going and getting a shot of whiskey. I'm not telling you guys what to do. You're don't like you can do what you want, but I'm just telling you there are things you can do with your inner world, your inner genius, with how you breathe, with how you focus your thoughts, with how you move your eyes. I mean, there's so many things you can do that create such a high that it makes things like alcohol, sugar, caffeine, junk food, like all those things, scrolling social media for hours and hours and hours, it makes all those things feel like a downer. Because when you're at home in your soul, when you're at home and you're aligned with your inner genius, you're in that place of alignment, then all these other things you've been reaching for to numb or avoid or self-soothe or whatever, they're actually like feel like a step down from what you've learned to cultivate in yourself. And until you experience that, it may sound like really abstract and weird and unbelievable. But when you do experience that, it's like you want to scream it from the mountaintops and you want everyone to know.
It's such a good point. And it's like just being able to, because we don't learn these tools and techniques in elementary school, or, we don't come, I would say we don't come with an instruction manual for our nervous system. So to be able to have learn these tools, right? We have to learn and go, oh, wow, these are things that I can go to when I'm feeling stressed or I'm feeling overwhelmed, so that I can calm my nervous system, reset things, and be able to come back into my center. I love that that's part of what you do is, just help me have that, like almost learn what is available within us. That's what you call it, that your genius, right? It's available inside of us. We just know I need to know how to use it.
How to tap in and use that, because we have magic inside of us. Like I remember when I really got into meditation, I started having these internal experiences where I was like, it wasn't at first. When I first started meditating, I was like, oh my God, my mind is crazy. Make a shut up. I want to move. I've had for 20 years. Yeah. Yeah, it was very confronting, but I was assured that this was normal, and it is. You're not supposed to stop your thoughts when you meditate. You don't stop your thoughts. You will stop thinking when your brain dead, which is when you're dead. But like, as long as your brain is not dead, like you will have thoughts. Now, the RPM, like how frequent and loud they are, will start to calm down, but that takes time. I do have some shortcuts I teach people. There's actually on my website, I call it a brain trick meditation. And it's a way, even if you think you quote suck at meditation, this is something you can do in 15 minutes that has cumulative effect over time. It retrains your brain. So you can, it helps with calming down anxiety. It helps with any kind of painful emotion, getting you unstuck from painful emotion where you feel it, but get out of it at the same time. So you're not avoiding. It helps with physical pain. It helps with sleep, like if you're having trouble falling asleep or you wake up in the middle of the night and can't go back to sleep. So it has all, it's like I was telling you earlier, it's like an instant pot, multifunction, printer, scanner, copier, all in one kind of technique. And so this is just one example of my toolbox that I give to people and to help you regulate your nervous system. And the thing is, just like you don't only exercise, I don't like that word. You don't only go to the gym or move your body when you're like, oh, like I don't like how I look, so now I'm going to go do this, but then I'm going to stop again. Like, so with this nervous system rewiring, there are things you can do anywhere between 5 to 30 minutes a day, depending on how you feel and what you fall in love with or whatever. That will accumulate over time if you practice them daily as part of your ritual. Like I have something I call a magical morning sunshine ritual, and it's habit stacking. It combines multiple strategies into a short amount of time. So it actually, if you do this daily for like 6 weeks, 3 months, something like that, you're going to make fundamental changes. And these individual techniques have been researched to show that they make positive changes in the brain, even if you've been through trauma, especially if you've been through trauma. You're under chronic stress, it'll start to restructure your brain from like a traumatized, stressed out person to a joyful, happy, regulated person. So you're literally changing your biology, like through these practices.
I love it. And I share about that research as well in my Master Your Stress to Reset Your House book, because there is so much research behind this. At first we can see like, oh, this is so simple. Can't make a difference. But actually, the research shows that it can make a difference even in small increments of time. And I love that you call it. I was thinking of the word magic actually when you were talking about your meditation. It's like a magic meditation because it can actually help in so many ways by simply giving ourselves the space and time to be present. And like you said, we don't turn off our thoughts. We just become more aware of them and more aware of which thoughts we want to engage and react to in any moment versus deciding, hey, I'm going to come back to that later and I'm going to just be in the moment here and focus on going to sleep or whatever is going on. So, oh my gosh, thank you so much for that,
Yeah.
Tracy. Those sound like
Yeah.
amazing.
Magical meditation. I might save that. I might like rename my I have to rename it.
That's when you were describing it. I'm like, oh, that sounds like a magical meditation. That's what I want.
Magical meditation. And I do want to give credit that the structural foundation of it came from Peter Levine and Maggie Phillips, both PhDs, trauma experts. So like, but I put my own spin on it. I also I have a background of teaching yoga on the side just for fun because like it brings out a side of me that I don't when I'm being Dr. Tracy. Like I like teaching yoga too. So I still teach one class a week. I don't know if I'm gonna keep doing it much longer, but that opened up a different part of me that feels really comfortable guiding meditation and helping people through like physical movement practices like that. But anyway, so I put my little Dr. Tracy or Yogi Tracy spin on it. But yeah, it is a magical meditation and we are magic. Like what we're capable of is amazing. And if we judge what we're capable of based on what's happening in the suffering in our families, what's happened in our past, we're going to really pinch off our future. And I know so many people, thought leaders, scientists, spiritual teachers, whatever, have been like teaching this for eons. And I want to weigh in on this. Like, yes, it's true. Like, come on, humans, team human, go, team human, go, like open up possibility, get unlocked. And really what I feel like the organizing principle, if you look at everything and that works in functional medicine and mind body medicine and nature therapy, like all these things, like if you look at what works, if you look at everybody who healed their cancer when they were supposed to die, all the people, my mom who, was supposed to lose her colon and be on immunosuppressant drugs the rest of her life. If you look at if I had gone down the slippery slope of not getting help with lead poisoning, mold poisoning, or hadn't caught the Lyme in time or whatever, if you look at everyone who's overcome something that's supposed to be insurmountable or incurable, what they all have in common is some form of working with their inner genius. So they ate in ways that they evolved to eat. They fixed their sleep by working with natural rhythms and circadian rhythms. They move their body the way we evolved to move. They shifted their thinking. They shifted their consciousness. They changed their frequency. Because at some level, if you really go to the super quantum, it's like you have to stop becoming a vibrational match for the illness. When you stop becoming a vibrational match for the illness, that's when your body enters new possibility, right? And we can do this on all levels, like through our lifestyle, through our thoughts, through our, and also dealing with our emotions, not just sweeping them under the rug. Like there's an elephant in the room, we'll just sweep it under the rug, but dealing with our feelings. I call it feel your way free. We have to feel our emotions. Now, there are times when, there are times when you're in these negative thought loops where feeding them anymore is not serving you. You need to refocus and redirect. There are times when your emotions are building up inside of you and you have to make time to sit and be with you and cry it out and maybe scream into a pillow or beat the crap out of your mattress or scream in your car and hit the steering wheel or whatever. But then we need to do something. What do mammals do? They shake after they go through a traumatic release. So you lie down and you let yourself shake to reset your nervous system. So there's so many tools. You just nailed it. You said we're not taught this in school. I wish children were taught to have like functional temper tantrums where they reset their nervous system afterwards, and we could grow up with this, right? But I still teach it to adults. It's never too late to learn. I don't care if you're 80, 90, I don't care how old you are. I'll help you, so there's so many things we can do. There's this huge box of things that work with your inner genius, that support your inner genius, that bring out your inner genius, that make your inner genius shine and come to the forefront of your life. And this way, your illness has now been a gift. Because when you go this route, your illness has now been a gift. It unlocked you from a dead end, limited human life. And now you get to become a full spectrum human and play full out in the gift of this life. And that's what I want for people. That's what I want. That's my deepest desire for myself and for everything.
Oh, that's so beautiful, Traci. And thank you so much for sharing all of that. And I love your passion. It just flows out of you. It's amazing. And I'm on the same page with you. I love to see those transformations, especially I see it in the women I work with who have abnormal pap smears and HPV related cancer risk. And I see them go through this change in their, it's not just taking this vitamin or taking this making this one single diet change. It's actually a transformation on an energetic level on all these ways where they redefine themselves and in doing so they completely shift into another place where HPV cannot survive any longer in this new state. And then they of course want to stay in this new way of being because it feels so much better. They're not going to go back to the way of being where HPV was able to survive. And I see it every day, and it's such a beautiful thing to observe. And so I love the words you just gave around it because it is really what I observe in patients when they go through that process. And it's right at our fingertips, even as you're mentioning someone who might, if anyone's listening and has had severe trauma, even trauma in your past, these tools can still help you. And so anyone listening, I'm hoping this has been an inspiration to you and maybe you can write down your thoughts and your questions. Feel free to write into Dr. Traci and I and be in touch with Dr. Traci if you'd like to find out more about her programs and how she can help you. Feel free to reach out to me. And absolutely, please subscribe so that you get the next episode of How Humans Heal and can continue on this journey of learning how humans heal. Thanks again, Dr.
I love the name of this podcast. I was like, I got to be.
Awesome. Thanks again for being here today.
Thanks for listening to How Humans Heal. If you liked this episode, leave a rating and a review. And for more resources, visit drdoni.com.